Okay. You ready? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Public Arts Commission of the City of Palm Springs for Thursday, June 14th, 2018. Ms. Henning, would you take the roll, please?
Yes, good afternoon. Commissioner Brenner?
Here.
Commissioner Gladstone?
Present.
Commissioner Murray?
Here.
Commissioner Merrigan?
Here.
Commissioner Pritchard?
Here.
Chair Sheffer?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. I'd like to mention also, I think most of you got an email to this effect, but there were 3 commissioners whose terms were supposed to be up on June 30th, and they've for all the commissions, the terms have been extended until December 31st. So you are all still commissioners for a while. The next item is the acceptance of the agenda, and I would like to propose that we change the order so that we take up the 2 mural projects, numbers 7 and 8, at the beginning of the meeting after the presentation, because there are people here to speak to each of those. So if there are no objections, may I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Public Arts Commission on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Public Arts Commission, and agenda items if the member of the public cannot be present later in the meeting at the time the item is heard by the Commission. Additionally, members of the public may address the Commission on each item listed on the posted agenda at the time each item is heard. Although the Public Arts Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it cannot generally take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 5 minutes is assigned for each speaker. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to something other than an item that's coming on later? Very good. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 10th, 2018. May I have a motion to approve them? I know it looked like they were 29 pages long, but it was really 5 pages of minutes and lots of attachments. Does anyone have any?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Thursday, May 10th regular Public Arts Commission meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Okay, we're going to begin our meeting today with a presentation from Lori Kibbe, who is one of the developers of the Dream Hotel. And she and I were talking about some of the ideas that she has for putting art in the project. And I suggested it might be great if she came and told us about them way ahead of time so that we would sort of be able to help if we could, or at least know what she's planning. So please come up. But I still have to ask you to spell your name for the lady who takes the minutes.
My name's Lori Kibbe, Lauri Kibby. So thank you, Anne, for inviting me. It sounds so formal a presentation, but as I had said to Anne, art, public art, and private art is very much a passion of mine. And so the opportunity with an 8-acre site with so much frontage along major thoroughfares, both Amado, Alvarado, and Caballeros, along with then our project, though it's 8 acres, only 45% of it is covered by building. So we have huge opportunity to actually create, in my sense, a park, if you will, where we're able to do more than just a piece of art and to have it be an art experience. So we spoke briefly about the corner, which faces on the corner of Amado and Alvarado, which is directly across the street from the front of the convention center, as a prime location for doing a major installation, possibly one that rotates. Anne had sent me something that goes on at the High Line, which I thought actually their selection of art was extraordinary. I've spoken to our landscape architect and to our interior design architect, who also have a big interest in what we do artistically, and we were just discussing potentially doing some sorts of competitions so that we can do site-specific pieces and not just have it be a sculpture. And of course, my goal would be obviously to work with your commission in what it is you might be looking for. But that for us would include not only just art in its traditional sense, but art in a form in the design of the benches is the most simplistic way to kind of talk about it, because we have all this public thoroughfare right away, and Section 14 calls for trying to integrate in some way benches in a more artistic way, for lack of a better way to say it.
Right.
So anyway, we're in the very early stages, but because of our time schedule, and I know it just takes time, we're now starting to lay the groundwork and try to come up with a plan and how do we work with your commission. I've spoken with the city and trying to work with them so that we can combine the various fees that we're required to do so that we can spread them out over the landscape of the project. So, and we know that our budget is not sufficient to do all of the things we want to do, but we have it in our own budget to do that additionally. So,
Which is great. Does anyone have any questions or comments about?
Just a general comment, because right now, I don't know if you and Ann spoke about the fact that we in the commission are trying to promote and encourage people to do murals on buildings. So wanted to suggest that in your planning stage, if you can incorporate that on part of the frontage or scale of the building in cooperation with the park, that would have some type of temporary rotational art space, which is also something we're doing in the downtown development area. So pushing for pieces that are not permanent, so there's always excitement about change and things that are coming.
well, we can look, though, hotels tend to have lots of windows and balconies. So it's a more difficult surface to create a mural on. And I don't know if you know our project, but our actual entrance to the project is east-facing, and you have to drive down a long promenade along the northern end of the property, down the eastern end of the property to get to the front of the hotel. We actually have, it doesn't look like a back door, but for us, it's the entrance to the restaurant and to the pool area, or to where, if you're a community member, you're able to use the pool. And it's not a direct entry into the lobby of the hotel. So we actually have been in a very brief discussion with a digital artist as to whether or not we could create on the end of the hotel there some sort of digital art that's screen related. That's possibly could be considered a mural, but could be any number of things. Right now the technology for creating a flame that flickers, or the sun that moves, or it's really quite amazing what you can do with rendering. And our thought was maybe there's some opportunity for some rendering on the end of the building on a screen. But we will certainly look at whether there's areas for that. We're trying to incorporate a lot of rock in this site because we live amongst canyons, and they're so heavy over structure that we're now talking with terracotta makers to how can we make rock that's really pieces of art out of ceramic, and what kind of cool things can we do there. So we're trying to be innovative in our approach.
The downtown park is talking about using a lot of rock for seating. I don't know how comfortable that will be, but it does, bring the rock in.
Right. Well, we have an artist who does in small scale, and we're talking to her about doing it in big scale, where she uses integrated color concrete, but in a smooth finish, and she puts it into big balloons, and then she forms it, and then it dries, and then she peels the balloon off, and they're incredible. And we're thinking about, can you do that in the form of benches and tables and things? So we're, like I said, we're trying to be more innovative in our approach to what is art, and how can it interface with the community.
And so when you're ready to come back with some specific proposals, but we find ourselves with some projects that have gone on in fits and starts for a few years, and then all of a sudden they pop up and say, okay, now we're ready. And so it'd be nice to be in communication.
Yes.
And see, at what point you are ready to do something.
Well, for us, it has to be integrated because of landscape. They're really extensively landscaped, so we have to plan early. So hopefully we'll be back sooner than at the last minute.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Very cool. Okay, so now we are going to skip over to the two agenda items having to do with murals. And the first one is, and you have a packet with all the application and the resolution. So we are to make a recommendation to the City Council regarding a request for approval of an art mural application by Palm Springs Art Museum for the art mural Cantus Teas by Sofia Enriquez on city-owned property at the southwest corner of Museum Drive and Tackwitz Canyon Way at the public event space area of the downtown revitalization site. And it's called, interestingly, it's mural number 3 for 2018, which is, this is our third one already since the new guidelines, which is great. You have the resolution. Why don't we see the people from the museum come up for a minute? We had a great presentation at the last meeting. I think if someone would make a motion to recommend the approval of this, then it will be on the floor and we can discuss it.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the art mural application for the Palm Springs Art Museum.
Et cetera, yes. Okay, and a second?
Second.
If you sit there, you know you have to second everything.
I second that emotion.
Okay, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, spell your names, and then just,
Sure. My name is Leonardo.
did you press the?
There.
There you go.
Leonardo Bravo, Leonardo Bravo. I'm the Director of Education and Public Programs at the Palm Springs Art Museum. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think to your point, Mr. Pritchard, it was the notion of creating, beginning to initiate this temporary murals program through the museum by inviting local artists with, a wall, a site that's very accessible to the public. And what's really, to me, interesting about this project is that we're also involving young children that will participate with the artists in the creation of the mural. So.
And the best part is that the wall's about 4 feet tall.
Right.
So no ladders required, right? Very good. And Jeb, why don't you just mention who you are?
Jeb Bonner, and that's spelled J-E-B, as in boy, Bonner, B-O-N-N-E-R, and I'm the Deputy Director and Chief Financial Officer at the Palm Springs Art Museum.
Great. And at the last meeting, we had 2 other members from the education staff and Sophia, and I thought they did a terrific job going through this application process.
Thank you.
So unless anyone has any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
just a reminder that board members of the museum may need to recuse themselves. Oh, and employees.
That was my sentiments exactly. Recused.
Yes.
And as board members. So I seconded, so maybe we need to rescind that second.
Are you a board member of the,
Public, the Photography Collection Council.
I don't know if that I don't think that's a board
No?
member.
Okay, good.
But I'm a board member and will recuse myself, and Mara is a member of the staff. Okay.
Did that clarify, Jay?
Technically, the persons are supposed to leave the room.
I thought at the last meeting, we decided that simply not, in this particular case, because it is not, we're not giving money to this group, we're simply approving their mural. But, so, Mara and I will
That's-
simply, we will,
Thank you, Madam.
all right. Would someone else like to, why don't you call for the question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go right ahead. You're in the Tom seat.
You have to leave first.
I'd just like to voice, this doesn't totally make sense to me that we have to leave this conversation. It's, I thought the Public Art Commission also just approves the sort of aesthetic merit of a project, but I'll just putting that on the record.
For the record, can you restate the question?
Thank you.
Jen? Can you restate the question?
What was the question, sorry?
So we have on the table a motion to approve the mural of the Palm Springs Art Museum, art mural application 18-003.
I just had a quick question on the time frame for the mural. When do you expect to do it?
When what?
When would you actually do the mural?
This summer.
This summer.
Yep, it's slated July. It's basically the first week of July.
Okay.
She will be prepping before that, but that's when she will be collaborating with the young students to complete the mural. So.
This is part of museum camp?
Right.
So it is part of our museum camp
As well.
Mhm.
I just have one question. So will you, so is this temporary and then maybe you'll do another mural next year for camp again, or?
I think it's got the seeds to be a great sort of program in which we can invite later on other artists, local artists, to do this kind of project. Right now, the only one that we foresee is the project with Sophia, and it is temporary, of course.
I think some of that depends upon how that plot of land, which is not in the contract right now for the downtown park project, develops. So
Yeah.
we'll wait for
It
that.
would be great to do the parking garages too.
Well, you got walls.
You got walls, you got paint.
Right, right.
Is that a motion?
A comment.
Okay.
I would
Yeah.
love to see the garages.
I
Okay,
think,
so-
again, that's part of the downtown park plans, so you might want to send that to the downtown park subcommittee.
Okay, just to clarify, so I'm making a motion to approve the resolution for the Palm Springs Public Art Museum, resolution number 18003. Okay, do we have a second?
That's actually the mural application.
Okay, so the
just approve-
resolution number is, or,
To be determined.
Oh, okay,
just
at the
as
time of- okay.
presented.
okay, so for application number 18003.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other comments? I'll call a question. Do we need to take a roll call vote because it is, okay.
Is there any more discussion?
No.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Merrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to make a recommendation to the City Council regarding a request for approval of an art mural application by the Rowan for a temporary art mural on a portion of the east elevation of the existing hotel located at 100 West Tahquitz Canyon Way, case 18004. And I believe we have someone here from the Rowan, so why don't you come up? You have a resolution for this one, too. Only a few typos in all of these. So let's again have the motion put on the floor. Does someone to approve this so that we're...
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the art mural application for the Rowan Hotel, application number 18-004.
And a
Second.
second, very good. Okay, now, in this case, we have not had a presentation before the application was turned in. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just walk us through this, please.
Daniel Gibby, G-I-B as in boy, B as in boy, Y. And I'm actually filling in for Abe Liao, our general manager. I'm the senior sales manager at the Rowan. I've been in the pre-opening office all the way through since June of last year. We're very excited about this project. Abe actually asked me to do this because I was in Venice and in Santa Monica this weekend and actually had the chance to see some of the angel wings murals. And I actually brought one. There was actually a dancer. I wanted to just.
All right, we'll get it.
But it's heading
It's
around
flying,
the table.
There'll
yes.
be nothing pretty about getting
But
that in the middle.
sorry about that.
But
We
it's
actually,
just
I
flying.
sat there and witnessed it in about a 20-minute span and watched multiple people come up with children, families. It was, and this dancer actually, quite beautiful, and it looks like a painting. But the location we think is going to be really popular. It's going to be just north of the Juniper Table Restaurant and adjacent to the Isabel statue. There's a perfect spot, actually, there's the location. We're planning on removing the vegetation, leaving some to the left and right, but actually putting the cement, continuing it forward. The mural itself is going to be 7 feet across and 14 feet high. Colette Miller started the project in 2012. There are now murals in 32 countries around the world. It's pretty exciting. As a matter of fact, this week she's in Seoul, Korea, doing a mural. So we anticipate the installation to take 2 to 5 days. It's acrylic paint. It's painted over with a clear varnish, and there's an anti-graffiti coating put over it as well. I think we're probably going to add a security camera in that space as well, because it is sort of tucked off to the side in the thoroughfare there. But we anticipate it just being just an additional draw for the whole complex. You've got the crawling babies, you've got Maryland coming, and we're very excited.
Do you want to talk just for a minute about how you want it to relate to the Pride celebration?
What we're going to do when the mural is completed in late August, we're going to actually host a reception for the artist Colette Miller. We're going to have special drinks. We're calling them Pride drinks, essentially. And it's going to be a fundraiser as well for Desert AIDS Project. Kimpton, I started with Kimpton way back in 1993 in San Francisco when we had 8 hotels. When Bill Kimpton was alive, and his whole passion was acceptance and love, and it's the vibe and feel of the whole company. So they were active in the LGBTQ community all the way back since 1981. So we just feel that it's a way for the Rowan to also give back to the community as well. And so there will be multiple events. I can't speak to all of them, but we do have some events planned around Pride that will be focused in on this project as well.
And if any of you have looked at Colette's website, you'll notice that it's a real attraction for people to stand right there and have the wings around them. So they're expecting a lot of that.
That's the whole concept, and if you look on the left, there's actually all the social media as well. And so literally what happens is people take the photos and they upload it right onto social media, which is really cool.
And there's lots and lots of them. Anyone have any comments or questions? Or
I think it's a nice way to activate that sort of quiet area. I use that walking path quite a bit.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Walking from the museum to Juniper Table and back. But no, but it's nice. It's a good path. It's a good use of that space, actually.
Well, I know, when Isabel went in, it's just been really cool to see, the draw that's been. And a lot of the people, you'll see them sitting on the circular cement part of it and posing just like Isabel. And I just think it's interactive in a really positive, sends a positive message in this time we're living in also. So
that's great.
Is this the design?
That is. That's why I wanted to show you some other examples. But the concept is it's going to be very. Abe said 14 foot high, 7 foot wide. To me, that looks like it's 14 foot wide and 7 feet high. I don't know. What do you think there?
It's a nice use of the space. I really hope maybe visually, I think, without any of the foliage, even though I'm the big.
To remove all of
here.
it? I know, I hate removing living, but you're right.
But
I
you
mean,
can
the
repurpose them. Get rid of the cypress anyway. I
The
see that.
concept is to remove and leave about 2 feet on each side, because what I noticed also is entire families and groups of friends will, in honor of friends who passed away, you'll see them line up together. So we definitely want to have about at least 6 feet of cement
Oh, yeah,
there.
or even more, just to make it really
Yeah.
visually more impactful and
Yeah.
not have it look cluttered.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, I would actually second that comment that it would be better without the foliage to
Okay.
allow for all groups of people to be in front of it. And because the rendering is just slightly off because it looks like it's rather high, that would come out of a lot of people's heads. But I think when the actual mural is done, clearly it's designed so that most normal-sized people would stand there and the wings are out of their
Yes.
back.
Maybe
It
you
is,
could have a step for children,
That's a great idea.
Stand
I did notice a lot of children doing it, and the wings were coming out of their But I'll mention that to Abe in the planning. I think we'll probably go with your recommendation.
Yeah,
of
because I
course.
think, because certainly, I've met with Abe on one other mural proposal, which didn't quite fly, but
Okay.
we're still in conversations because there are so many available walls there. It's great to see this being activated, especially close to Isabel, because it's such a popular spot now.
It's a good tie-in for us because we're also, in my previous life, I worked at the Saguaro as part of the opening. And of course, we did a lot of work with the local artists in the community. We just signed our first little contract. We have a little space in the hotel as you walk up the stairs to the ballroom where we're going to feature, there's a wall right there on the landing, and we're going to feature local artists on that and do a little reception for them. So just a little, we're trying to
Agreed.
involve the community.
Yeah, that's that little gallery space where you have to do the wall.
Yeah, so
thing.
they're going to, no, it's actually the stairs as you go up to the main ballroom, and there are 2 planners and 3 paintings on the wall. They're going
Right.
to be removed, and that's where it's going to be. And it'll, the first one goes in on July 1st, and it's with Mod City Studios and Richard Prescott.
Right. And who does the curating for that within the hotel?
I can't answer, I don't know the specific details. That would be an Abe question.
Okay, I'll check with Abe.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there sufficient lighting in that area?
Here?
Yes.
There is lighting there, and it's just part of the natural lighting for the hotel. But I do believe, because I heard Abe discussing it, I think there is some discussion of actually installing, and it's great for security, for
Yes.
graffiti. I do believe they're going to put additional lighting there.
Thank you.
And it makes sense. I mean, literally, we're across from El Corso and the patio, and it's going to look beautiful,
It's a great location.
So
And
it's like it was meant to be there.
did you say when you thought it would be?
Sometime between mid to late August, and then we'll have the reception for Colette Miller sometime in early September, and that'll be in tandem with Desert AIDS Project.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Any other questions? If not, let's take a roll call vote on this so we have a record of it.
Okay, Commissioner American,
Aye.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes?
Commissioner Gladstone,
Yes.
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Chair Sheffer,
Yes.
motion passes unanimous.
And I'm going to
Good.
apologize for that. I don't know how to get
Okay, you're going to have to leave it. 'cause- Okay, well, thank you.
All right,
and
thank you
we'll
so
look
much.
forward to the dedication of it.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the agenda. We're on new business, and the first is to authorize a 5-month extension of the consulting services agreement with social media consultant GL, the Very Best Services LLC, which is Madalena Garza, for $5,000, which would be for 5 more months. Madalena called me a little while ago and said that she had the flu and didn't think she should come and share it with us. But I quickly threw together just one recent page of the statistics on the percentage increase in visits to our page, and she has another one on what the Instagram account has been doing, which I didn't have a chance to copy, but I do have. This is sort of a collage of the Instagram posts that she's put up. And we've gotten just lots and lots of reposting and it didn't hurt to be part of the babies as far as getting attention. So I would like to move this authorization of a 5-month extension to her consulting agreement.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, well, we just second it first, so we have okay, then we're on the table with it.
Okay.
Yep.
I second.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, just thinking that, the commission kind of, we go dark for like 2 months, even though I know there's work happening, it's quieter. I mean, has there been any thought to us just sort of putting the social media on hold for a couple months and sort of restarting in September? Now that the new public art installations have taken place and the next ones aren't really happening again until August or September.
Well, I think the idea, though,
It's
is
just an
to
idea.
sort of to keep attention on what's going on and what's being planned, and certainly for this big celebration in October. So instead of dropping it to, one of the things I suggested to her is that, and she started doing it, is to photograph the existing pieces. Sometimes there are people sitting on them and stuff, and it's sort of bringing it more to people's consciousness of, so it's not just events, this is the art that's around the city.
Well, that would be then a good idea, just because there are fewer arts activities for her to document, and there's less social IRL happening. So I think,
Right.
If we can give her that task, that project to document all of the public artworks in our holdings that are on view, and then she can save those to disseminate throughout the year, or just to like have them as a sort of in a
Exactly.
holding zone. That would be my preference. And not that she shouldn't still be doing things actively on the social media sites, but it just seems like there's less for her to cover.
I think there are fewer events, but I think the idea is to keep up the momentum, sort of, that we've got lots of people sort of commenting on things and sharing things of theirs. I mean, it's become sort of a dialogue on public art, which is, I think, what we were hoping for. So I think it would be better not to have a break, especially if we would like to really be prepared in the fall to just keep
Yeah,
going.
I initially thought of that as well. It should come out of it, not much going on in the summertime, but I think it is very important for us to maintain the momentum and have Madalena incorporate pieces from the existing collection into the current dialogue with the new installations to sort of refresh what's already been on view for a long time that people forget about it, don't know about. Just bring that a little bit more forefront into the public's mind.
I don't know if you've noticed, she did a couple of sculptures with people sitting in them, and, they're just fun. But she also, I don't exactly understand all of this myself, but many, many hashtags for every picture that she does, so that they're showing up all over the place. It takes a different mindset. Plus, she has, I know she recorded a little interview with me, and I think she's done some of the rest of you that she wants to roll out. The idea is maybe not to hibernate all summer, but to keep things, just the interest alive. So, any other comments? Or
And just so we can prepare too for next year. So the work just might shift a little bit, but it's still good prep time.
okay, shall we vote on the motion to authorize a 5-month extension of the consulting services agreement for social media? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next item is, if you remember, when we worked on revising the mural application process, it was proposed that we refund the fees for the first three of the first successful murals. And I would like to recommend that we refund the fees paid by the Palm Springs Cultural Center for the Jump for Joy mural, which I hope all of you have seen. It was just really terrific. So the total that would be reimbursed to them would be $1,426. May I have a second for?
Second.
Is there any discussion on doing this? Russ, you want to just sort of remind us what the purpose of this was?
Well, yeah, it's just the purpose to kickstart and publicize the public art mural, that it's now an easier process for and to encourage people to do public art murals, that we decided in discussion that we pay the mural application fees for up to 3 mural projects per year, I think was how we worded it. So I'm, of course, very much in favor of us doing that in recognition of the Cultural Center coming up and doing a mural.
Very good. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. The motion passes. The next item has to do with our schedule. As you know, the commissions don't usually meet in August. However, in July, it appears that we would not have a quorum. So I am proposing that we cancel the meeting that would have been on July 12th, and which would make our next regular meeting on September 13th, 2018. I'd like to propose that just in order to, again, sort of hit the ground running in the fall, that we have a study session on September 6th, or if people are available and around, even a week earlier, which would be August 30th. And therefore, all the work that these subcommittees have been doing over the summer could get itself into the form of proposals that could be voted on September 13th. Does anyone have is one of those dates better than the other? Would you like to do August 30th so that gives a little bit more time between the two meetings, or?
Yeah, I would think
Yeah, I would
that
say
August
August.
30th would be a little bit better, just, yeah, to have more prep time to report to each other and get things properly on the calendar.
Okay. Well, the agenda for that meeting will be to review the plans for the year and to discuss any items that require further action. And perhaps we can arrange to meet at the Desert Art Center again, which is a nice place for a study session. Okay.
Madam Chairman, I have a question. Will staff be available throughout the summer if there are any questions? Thank you.
They don't get to take the month off. Okay.
So do you need a motion?
Yes, I think we probably should. A motion to cancel the July 12th meeting and the next regular meeting would be on September 13th, 2018, and that we would notice and hold a study session on, August 30th, 2018. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. All right, I think now what, actually, not yet. I was going to say we have a lot of these plans are going to get reported on as we get into this, but there are 2 pieces of unfinished business. The first, I'm going to ask Commissioner Pritchard to report on has to do with the the installation location for the piece by Michael Bernberg. And if you remember at the last meeting, we were faced with a $5,000, $4,800 engineering report that would be required if it went into the pit. So, Commissioner Pritchard, why don't you tell us what's been...
Well, yeah, a few things just on the Michael Bernberg installation is we voted on and approved the installation for the grit art pit, which is site block F. With the arrival of the babies now having such a great impact on that location, coupled with the fact that the engineering required for Michael Bernberg's piece to exist within the pit, and also the news that we will have usage of the auxiliary downtown park site, which, for lack of other terms or definition, is the site proposed for the Luminaire House. We'd like to relocate, or not relocate, we'd like to change the location for the Michael Bernberg piece from the Grit Art Pit Block F to the upper site, where it will require less engineering, if any at all. So that money that we've approved, up to $5,000, will not necessarily need to be spent, or a smaller portion of it. Plus, it will give the Michael Bernberg piece more visibility, more access to the public, and will become another photo op for people because they can walk up to the piece as opposed to it being not accessible in the art pit.
And we should mention, Commissioner Pritchard and I are the representatives to the city's subcommittee on the downtown park, and the designers of the park and the city council members on the committee have decided that what was sometimes called the art park will not be developed by them in this first phase of the park. And so it will be available for us to propose some installations or programs or whatever there. But everything, including the Luminaire House, has just been sort of put on hold while they develop the other side of the park.
Yeah, because what we'll be able to do in our subcommittee for sites and installations, now that we've approved the mural for that parcel as well, if we move Michael Bernberg's piece, there is still lots of available space to consider other types of art installation or workshops or something ongoing for the next period of year to a year and a half, 2 years.
So in one of the subcommittee meetings, or at the museum maybe 3 weeks ago,
Right.
there was some discussion with someone from city staff actually, and the architect, that we could think about just sort of making that area just a little more aesthetically cleaned up,
Like
with
gravel, right.
simple gravels, just doing that kind of work. And I just want to bring that up here because it seems like while Michael Bernberg's project could kind of live on that sort of funky site as a sort of interim, and that I think that would actually be okay. I would really like to see that kind of treatment, whatever. And I'm not sure if someone from the Parks Department was going to help with that, or
I think
how
it
we
was,
could do that. But
Marcus Fuller, the assistant city manager, who said that they would
just to clean it
they
up.
would
And
level
I
it
think
and
just from the city's perspective, I mean it's now a actually pretty active intersection, and it just sort of looks kind of yucky. So this would be a way to, even just putting some nicer gravel on would make it seem like, okay, we're thinking about this site, and even if not much is actually happening on it, it would, a lot of people stand on that corner and take photos and just sort of
Right.
situate themselves where to go next, where to get a taco, and I just think it's, just to clean it
I
up a
think
little
we
would be great.
we could add to this
Okay,
report that
thank
we
you.
encourage the city. We hope that they will be able to put gravel or some similar surface on sooner rather than later.
Yeah, very basic hardscape of some sort.
Great. Any other comments about citing this? And the actual site of it will be worked out by the Sites and Installation Subcommittee with the artist. And I have no idea what the timeline for that is, but I don't know if he's fabricating it yet, or he had to wait to see.
Yeah, we sort of needed to wait for if we need to make a motion to vote to change the location of it. That's sort of dependent on the footings, and that's sort of part of the construction. So it's in the process, but needed this decision.
So
And I
has the
hope-
fabrication begun?
Yes.
But it was.
And has payment been made to the artist?
1/4 or 1/3, some amount.
Quarter in the contract.
I thought we got a little bit more, but, and I hope that Commissioner Gladstone will be available for helping to cite this, because it's,
So do we need a motion to change the location?
it wouldn't hurt. It doesn't affect the contract, and I think what we should do is to empower the subcommittee to determine the exact location.
Placement.
Did I miss that? So do we need that extra engineering or just a little bit of it, or?
It's likely we may not need any of it, or a very small portion of it. Because when we were going to do it in the grid art pit, it was going to be raised approximately 10 feet off the ground. On the new location, if we decide to change the location, it will only be perhaps 2 feet off the ground. So it's less
It was
engineering.
these 10-foot pilings that were
Yeah.
going to be a problem. Okay, if there are no other questions, then may we please have a vote on the direction to the subcommittee to recite the work in conjunction with the artist on this art park section. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And I assume that the committee will keep in touch with the city.
Did someone make a second on that? I'm sorry.
Well, it wasn't really a motion.
Just a vote.
Well,
Do we need a motion?
oh, you have a question? Okay. All right, we're going to,
Did you ever say
Backtrack a bit.
anything about the $4,800? Wasn't there
Well,
something about?
yeah, the discussion was that if we change the location to the art park
Okay.
part, then the engineering fee, if any, should decrease significantly. So of the monies that we voted to pay for the engineering fee, if 4,800 could drop as low as 2,000 or 1,500.
I'd just like to make sure that this is evaluated before the artist continues to fabricate the work and more funds are dispersed from him, just to make sure that that site, doesn't have other engineering needs, because I understand, the Illuminaire house is being held up because there are some other engineering needs on that particular parcel. So it would be really great to make sure that there are no additional expenses spent on this project. I have to voice my concern that I think this project is too expensive, and I don't think it's, I do not want it to cost more than what everyone has already voted on it costing. So it would be great to just make sure that the engineering comes back below $5,000.
Do you want a motion to include that?
we can. So what the item says is to approve changing the installation location. And I think we can vote to approve with the proviso that that this location meets the engineering requirements of the city and does not require any additional expenditure to move it to there.
Yeah, because basically when we voted to approve the additional funding for engineering, we basically all agreed that this was it, period.
Okay, so we're approving moving the location subject to the city and agreeing in terms of engineering needs and no other expense. Okay, let's just take the vote again. All in favor of approving this move with those provisos?
We
Yes.
need a
Yes.
motion. Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Commissioner Murray, would you like to give us an update on the homeless art project that you've been working on? And I believe you have a
Yes, Madam
guest.
Chair, in place of a verbal report from me, I'd like to invite the rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Father Andrew Green, to
Oh, cool.
Share from our subcommittee meeting, Mr. Pritchard, Commissioner Pritchard was a part of that, Father Andrew Green, and the artist, Mr. Castro. Update.
Tell us what
The mural.
what the plan that you're hatching is.
My name is
First
Andrew. Push the button.
Yeah.
And thank you for
Andrew Green,
waiting patiently. Thank you.
ANDREWGREEN. I'm the rector of St. Paul in the Desert Episcopal Church at 125 West El Alameda. And our building, I don't have any pictures for you or anything, but the main church building, let me back up. I've been talking with a variety of people over maybe the last year or so about what's the possibility of doing a mural in the church or one of our related buildings. And when Mr. Pritchard and Mr. Murray and Mr. Castro came by, we looked around the property, and the space that I thought was really great, he didn't think it was so great, and came up with 2 other spaces. And so, are you familiar with Triniturk? Okay, so it would essentially be on the side of the church that's facing Triniturk or the Little Shop of Flowers. And it's the southeast corner of the building, and Mr. Castro wants to do the corner because that corner is actually visible from Palm Canyon through a little breezeway, and it would also allow for a kind of different perspective, having it as a corner. And then if you move further to the north, directly across from Triniturk, we have a little alcove, and we've got a feature that we've just finished installing there, and we'll have a bench and things. But on the north wall of the south side of that alcove, which is 90 degrees opposite Triniturk, he thought that might be nice for another deal. That one would be probably relatively low, and the idea, if you go online, I think you can look at some of his artwork. I don't know what the right description for it is, but it's surrealistic, and they tend to be very colorful, peaceful kinds of images. And so the idea would be that various stakeholders who use the property might also be able to be involved with the development of the murals. Children, the homeless population that are hosted at lunch there on Wednesdays. All of the food for those lunches is cooked there. We have approximately 12 to 18 12-step groups that meet, and it might be some of those members might be interested in participating, so there could be a lot of community ownership of it. I've talked to my board, and they're interested in seeing this go forward. We're waiting for Mr. Castro to give us an idea of what it would look like so that we can take the next step, and I believe our hope is to have something for you all in September.
That would be great. And members of the commission, I'm sure, would be happy to help you through the application process so that it could be ready to go in September. And the people in the city are also very helpful. For example, they will look up and give you the technical location of that corner so that you can put it on the application. And I think that this would certainly be a mural that we would consider refunding the fees for.
Yeah, I just want to make one request from Father Green and Commissioner Murray, if we may, because we've talked about this as a community-based art project. So I would like to change, going forward, all discussion and printing from homeless art project to community art project, because we're going to involve all aspects of the community who are there, and I think it's more appropriate to not pigeonhole it as a homeless project per se, but a community building project.
I'd like to hear Father Andrews.
I
Thoughts
don't
on
have
that?
an objection one way or the other. I don't have any ownership of how it's been presented to you all.
But it bridges a community. It bridges the
I
community.
think the idea of
Yeah.
community sounds really good and probably does better at not kind of featuring in a way that might be dehumanizing homeless people. As a separate from the community, I'd rather see
Right.
that simply as another part of the community.
Yeah, because I think in our meeting a month or so ago, you discussed the 12-step groups that meet there. And did you say there's one of the oldest or
Yeah, there's one
longest
group
running?
that's been meeting there since 1948.
Yeah, so I think it's important to sort of embrace that as part of the community, so it's all encompassing rather than just saying, identifying one population set.
It could be like building community bridges too, like it could be even just, you know, not just community, but,
Well, building or just embracing community.
Yeah.
Because we are all community.
yeah.
It serves a purpose, and I don't know, I'm excited. And I have to give kudos to Ms. Henning, who, when you gave us the tour in the beginning several years ago, wow. It was just a
Well, I'm really excited about the
vision that's coming to
For me,
fruition.
the importance is that we have a particular noted function that we play in the community, but churches historically have had a much wider impact in community than just our religious ceremonies and everything else.
So excited to hear more, and
forward
the
to it.
celebration around that mural with martinis or whatever.
Yeah, I would think if we were inviting the
Folklore.
12-step groups,
Oh, dear.
probably won't be.
Not very good.
I'm just
Sparkling
kidding.
cider.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Father.
All right, we'll see you in the fall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for the ice cream.
As long as there's not someone in this 12-step group about sugar, we're just fine.
Well, you know, up at 12-step group, we've got AA, Al-Anon, NA, 2 different SA groups. We have several OA groups, so
Just-
there's not much of anything that you can put on the table. That's some problem.
Exactly.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, that's the end of that report. Unless,
Very good. So,
Commissioner Pritchard has something.
no, you're good. Okay.
And thank you, Ms. Henning.
So now we have 3 subcommittee reports that all have to do with plans for next fall. And what I'm hoping is that each subcommittee can lay out what some of their plans are, and then if there are parts of it that can be put into motion over the summer, whether it's just a purchase order for something or getting permits for something for the event, whatever, that having looked at the whole program, those we can ask the staff to help with getting particular things done before September. So the first one is the report from the Sites and Installations Subcommittee, and Commissioner Pritchard has given you a copy of the report. So, would you like to explain? It says Sites and Installations Subcommittee Temporary Art Installation Proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Commissioners Gladstone and Yanni and I've met a couple of times to discuss the temporary art installations for the Virgin Hotel site, which will have possession of approximately October of this year. I'm considering to do an approximate budget of $45,000 that we'd like to see done in 2 rounds of funding, 24/5 each. And we discussed the ways of executing temporary art installations on the site from a position of the easiest way and most effective way to do it. So we wanted to give consideration to using Branded Art LLC, Warren Brand, as a, what's the word?
Sort of manage it. You might mention on the second page is some information about this firm, which we heard of because they managed the mural at Desert Regional. They were hired by Covered California, who was paying for the mural. And they wrote the application, and they got the permits, and they got the artist, etc. If you notice, they've done this like 350 different public art projects.
Yeah, so in our discussion, I just lost the term, proposed we use him for a consulting service agreement with Branded Arts to manage, as Chair Shepherd just said, all of the permits, selection of the artists, both working from local artist pool, national artists, international artists, come up with proposals which you would bring to us for approval of all aspects of it, breaking it down into a couple of rounds of funding and a couple of rounds of actual installation. First one in the outline, we would have no fewer than 2 actual art installations, whether they're site-specific or existing art that an artist has that can be placed on site or on property. The existing concrete footings and partial walls that are on site would have some other artful painting and or murals that could change periodically through the usage of the site. And if we do those as more of an artful mural or artful painting project, it does not really qualify as a mural per se, so it could change more randomly and more frequently. But I think just for an effective way to activate this site using Warren Brand as a consultant would be a good direction for us to go. I don't know if Commissioner Gladstone has anything to add.
Yes, I do think it's a good idea to work with him. I think he has some experience in doing these kinds of things that could bring some good ideas. I do have a few questions and just thoughts about what you've outlined. First, I wonder if there's a way to not, to just talk about the Grit development site more broadly and not specifically the Virgin Hotel site. Or I wonder if we might not want to use Warren Brand to work on this sort of extra art space that we're now thinking about. The Michael Bernberg will go. I just wonder if we might want to expand the site, just in case something comes up, or the developer decides to start something else there, or store something
more
there.
Babies.
Like, it would be nice to just have a little flexibility with the site somehow, and just specifying that Virgin Hotel site, I just think is too limiting. I also would encourage us to actually put some dates in terms of the execution, and to think of this. I know we have to identify funding, when funding will be provided, but I actually think it's better for us to say when we want a project done by, and then kind of go back from there. So, because I think otherwise it's just better to work that way.
I think it's something that the subcommittee needs to do.
This
It's
is
hard for us
a lot
to do
of
today.
subcommittee
Right.
conversations, which is to say I don't think we can approve this. But another thought I had was I just think, given what's come up with the Michael Bernberg, and I think we need to really clarify engineering fees for projects paid for by X, de-installation expenses paid for by X. I think there are a lot of other potential expenses that we haven't thoroughly thought through here in this contract, and I'd just like to see us addressing it in some way. So,
I think
and
we should
maybe
act-
there's
yeah.
a kind of a sort of 10% sort of there's some kind of language that we can use that would allow us. Well, we should also just figure out how much, what our position is, and how much we would want to really spend on these kinds of projects.
Right.
So, those are just a few things, or just a few thoughts. But more generally, I do think it's a nice idea. I think he'll inject our whole enterprise with this sort of fresh artist perspectives.
And
so.
when you look at some of the projects they've done in other cities, I think it's a lot of things we haven't thought about. But I think the idea would be to simply enter into an agreement with them where they would propose something. The commission would have to approve the particular plan, but then, since they have the experience in either finding the artists or having a competition or whatever, to let that. But I think the project as a whole has to be approved by the commission. So if the subcommittee would work on that for this study session, that might be a place to.
Yeah, because I think procedurally, we were just sort of trying to get the approval of all of the commission to move forward with this as a general concept. The 45,000 is the total budget, 24.5 for each of the funding rounds, and then we in the ad hoc committee or subcommittee would further define all of the elements that will fall into that jurisdiction. And if we want to discuss having Warren Branded Art charged with both the Virgin Hotel site and the art space, combine those, then I'm all for that too.
I think that might be a good idea.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So, I think bringing Branded Arts in is great. Obviously, I was incredibly impressed with who they were and when they showed us the scope of their work. But I wonder if we can look outside of downtown Palm Springs. We have spent so much time and energy focused there, and there's so much going on. There are communities to our north, there's communities to the south, there are so many other parts of the city that I would like to, if it's possible, not constrict this as to this is going to be downtown, but bring them on for input of where are the best sites so that we are bringing public art throughout the city.
I think that report was made a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, sites and installation under the direction of.
But we could give that to them in discussing. I like the idea of, maybe something we haven't thought of. So I think that there's a lot of discussing that could go on about what, and again, because they've done this in so many cities, what would they propose? I think the idea of using the the Virgin Hotel site was that it would be very visible and part of sort of enlivening that part of the city while all this development was taking years and years to do. On the other hand, who knew that the babies would be there? I mean, maybe some of the wow factor is less important on the other site and should be on the park site because that timing has been changed. So it's sort of a moving target, especially as far as timing and which things to do when. I mean, we thought, at some point you thought that the Arts Commission might be filling the pit with things, and the next thing you know, and I've just heard that the PS Modcom might put a house in there too. So I've already bought them some ruby slippers.
I wasn't finished, Madam Chairman. So there is a report, a summary of what you're asking about. I don't know the name of the report, but there was one done. My question is, how much did we budget for site
What was the
installation
report for us that
We
are
didn't
new?
previously budget anything. We just had a list of possible sites.
Okay.
But
So there was no submitted budget. I thought we had a budget for it.
Our budget that was submitted to the City Council has about $264,000. I don't have this budget in front of me, but that's unallocated. And so think of it as that's sort of what we're working with now. So we've had a proposal of $45,000 for temporary art installations.
Okay.
And then we're about to hear what we might earmark for art in the park itself. And then the third part is the anniversary celebration. So because the way they pass our budget is in big chunks for art acquisition and programs, it's like $264,000. So all we're doing right now is setting ourselves some priorities, some approximate amounts. And then there's a lot of work on each idea for what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Okay, if I may, the report that you mentioned, Commissioner Murray, is that something that may have been before my appointment?
I think so. I think maybe Ms. Henning can refer to that. I thought there was a report.
Well, there was a report that Commissioner Yanni and I did.
Right.
We went and looked at several sites that we thought were possible sites that could use art. I think one of them is that corner out at Vistacino and
Near the
Ginatri or something like that. There were several sites. What we did end up doing was that's when we placed the bicycle racks. That was a part of that, so it wasn't particularly comprehensive. But maybe being a part of that makes me very conscious of there's a lot of other sites in the city besides downtown, and we keep focusing on all this art downtown, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, we got so much there, but we've got a whole city, and I feel like it is our duty to look at all of those, and I think they would be ideal with their eye to kind of look around and go like, wow, this is an ideal place.
So why don't we just broaden the charge to the Sites and Installations Committee but I think sort of the underpinning of this was temporary art. I mean, not installing things that will be there forever, but having the whole installation and while it's there be something that engages people, and then maybe it moves somewhere else or whatever. And I like that Lori Kibbe was talking about this corner site by the convention center would have rotating art, so that, you know, it would always be something fresh when you came by.
One of the things the anniversary committee is working on is asking the city where they'd like to see art.
Oh, yes.
Oh, of course.
I'm getting ahead.
No. All right, we'll hold on to that thought, and let's talk just for a minute about what the downtown ad hoc. We have a committee to work with the city's park committee, which has people from each commission. So we had
So are we moving to number
meeting.
10
Yes.
at this point? Okay, so with number 9.
Because the other is not something we need to vote on.
Okay, so we'll just
We've sort of
continue.
had
Okay,
all
sorry,
our
just
comments.
clarifying.
Input to your
Great,
subcommittee.
thank you.
Very good, okay. So, Mara, do you want to talk a little bit about, we had a subcommittee meeting with the park architect to talk about art actually in the park. And
We did, and I also attended the meeting last week. I know that the
full
update
committee, right?
on the public park.
Was the art mentioned at that? Did they?
There was some discussion. There was some discussion, but it was really focused more on the just getting the park done.
Right.
And moving
Police
forward,
station,
getting the park
right,
done.
yeah.
But in our prior meeting, our meeting about 2 or 3 weeks prior to that, we were able to meet and talked a bit about this sort of art use space where the former the Illuminaire House was, and this idea of that being a space that we could really find ways to activate, whether with sculpture, first doing some kind of hardscaping that could be done relatively inexpensively, but then also this idea of really thinking about it as a site where more ephemeral kinds of art activations could take place. And so as we continue to have these discussions, it would be nice to keep talking about that. Installing works of art is difficult, heavy, there are dangers involved. There's all this kind of stuff that we need to check, but artists today work in many different media, and there are maybe ways to think about more like lab spaces. And even the architect was also very interested in that because there's so many unknowns involved. So actually I think what we're doing in the fall with the 30th anniversary is a nice way to sort of maybe potentially test out some of these activations and sort of continue in this sort of community engagement.
But we also did talk about possibly a piece.
So, but then we talked about bringing ideas to the table for commissioning a larger sculpture, and there in the design there will be spaces to do this. You know, I think the Public Art Commission would can and should contribute to something that will be part of the park and part of the city, for the city and the community, because it's really being conceived as a space for people to interact with each other and the community. So.
And the landscape.
And the landscape.
Very nice. And the water feature.
Landscape is a big part of it. There are a lot of plantings. There's a water feature. There are a lot of different ways to engage with the park, whether shaded or unshaded, depending on the time of the year. And I think there will be a lot of opportunities for the Public Art Commission.
And the designers of the park had, and very early in their plans, submitted a plan with a couple of places for a sculpture. And I think talking with them, they're beginning to see that this can be things that are more part of the landscaping, or they're very into sound sculptures, which would be interesting. But also they've done a lot of hiking, and they're very interested in the kinds of materials in the canyons. And so but they were very happy to talk about integrating some art at this point before the design is really completely firmed up. So we had talked about, again, this is just sort of earmarking up to $150,000 for something really worthwhile in the park. But it probably will be 6 months or something before we know what that something is. So that's another one for the fall. Meanwhile, our 30th anniversary, Commissioner Merrigan, and there's that's Tracy's report. Okay, a report from the subcommittee on the 30th anniversary year, really, we're calling it, right?
So, did you guys all get one of these? So last time I talked too long, so I think I'm just going to update.
Tracy, I think you need to go closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'll update you on what we've been talking about for those 2 dates. So from the meeting last time, we talked about doing a smaller event on the 11th, and then utilizing both free open hours at the museum, so on the Sunday and on the Thursday. We love our giant Public Arts City of Palm Springs map, interactive map that we can take all year. The idea right now is that it's 8 by 10, but that's flexible.
But it is flexible, right? It's like...
Yeah, it will be made out of felt, so we can like roll it up basically and take it everywhere. And then it will have the cutouts of all of our art, and people can move them around at our events.
Easier said than done, right?
They'll be like Velcroed and stuff. So we're going to unveil that on the 11th with the remarks, with remarks on our 30th anniversary, with however the museum is participating, TBD. And then a new addition to this is the Public Arts app, which
is being done by the Convention and Visitors Bureau for all of the cities in the Coachella Valley, and with maps of, and Palm Springs has sent in their art. I think that they're going to try to make it a sort of an art trail, sort of, or a couple of streets you could drive down and what you would see. But we've been talking about this for how many years? But it does seem to make more sense to be in with the other cities. So
Yeah, and it's really exciting if we could do like our Palm Springs launch of it.
Right,
that
because they're
night.
saying a soft launch in August, but who knows? And certainly by October, it wouldn't hurt to launch it.
Yeah.
Launch it again.
So then we could repurpose those Warhol tree boxes to
Right.
advertise that app and our 30th anniversary.
Do you know what she means? For the Warhol in the park, they put these posters sort of around trees. And they're still there, you may have noticed. But we talked to the people who put them there, and they said they would be happy to reprint them with public art instead of many pictures of Marilyn, which it was such a great exhibit, though.
Yeah, and that's a local company in Palm Desert. So then, moving on to the Artists Here Street Party. So, as Maura was talking about, so that's all supposed to be activating our public community, interacting with our public, making them excited about public art, and a community spirit. So, all of these activities at the moment are free, so we would have to discuss if we were going to charge for some of the activities. So, and they would center around, I mean, we can design them more around public art or art. So like the photo booth, we could do as our public art pieces. We could incorporate our art into everything. So like our cookie activity, we'd have pre-made blank cookies of our public art shapes, and then people can paint them as they will that
Very
day.
ambitious to make like curly cube cookies. But
This-
all of this is
yeah,
obviously stuff that you'll work out over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
So, but overall, it's great.
Yeah, and they do, this person does really crazy different types of cookies, so our thing is, I think, easy, actually. And then our public art T-shirts, so people would pick their design and have them made on site with our oldies but goodies and our Hit the Streets street art T-shirts. And then a few of these meetings are coming up after this. So that's October.
So you can see why September is a big meeting. We'll have to put this all together by then. But
So I don't really have many updates on the rest of the year. This might be a little more flushed out than last time, so I've retouched base with Kate Anderson about, she had invited us to participate in their Key Wet in November, so I thought that was a really great way of incorporating public art into that, and it will be at the Palm Springs High School. I'm a really big fan of Porfirio Gutierrez, who is going to be, there's going to be a program with him at the museum. So if something like that, an event around that could take place, maybe at the Key Wet or at the museum. I met with the chair of the Parks Department, Parks and Recs Commission, to talk to him about having events next year in the park. So he was really excited about using the parks, and I'm excited about doing that too, because I think we don't pay enough attention to our parks. And he really loved the idea of having like a plein air day in the park, like maybe at Ruth Hardy Park, or so that's kind of.
That would be fun, wouldn't it? That's great. Does anyone have any things they want to add, just like not to forget about? I'd like to throw in that if there are activities like this mural we were hearing about at St. Paul's, where the public can participate in some way. I mean, they bring a piece of something, or they are part of something, either a mural or creating a sculpture. You know, I've seen things where everyone brings a piece of whatever it is, and an artist helps form it into a sculpture. Just, you know, extra points for participation, I think would be great.
Yeah, and we should all communicate, like, what other, you know, the St. Paul's thing, so we can put it in this, you know, find a frame for it in this whole celebration,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Right, find out sort of when it will be done, and that could be. Does anyone have any other thought? It's, you know, it's kind of a overwhelming idea, but, you know, it's getting broken into sort of bite-sized pieces, and hopefully some of them can be set up, or the contacts made over the summer, so that, and this one is not a whole big, you know, it's not all one big package. There's a lot of moving parts.
Who would handle, Madam Chairman? There is a lot of excitement. I think it's just the latter part of the day for some of
Yes, I
us.
think so.
Yeah. Who would handle the proclamation? Would that
Well,
come-
last year I wrote one for the mayor. I could do that again.
And I think I've heard where pictures are, how does it go? Pictures are whatever. But as part of the subcommittee, maybe next time we can come up. I don't know if you have the cookies are just marvelous, you know, the way they were designed and that kind of thing. But I just wanted to emphasize that there is excitement and, however, concern about PR. Not a concern, but
Right.
promo. And
Well, we have to take a lesson from those babies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they created quite a lot of interest in it.
And then the budget, finally, you know, for the 11th and 14th.
Yeah. But I think we can't be specific today, but I think, can we say for the minutes that the commission as a whole is very supportive of all these ideas, and,
It'll be nice.
you know, as many as can be done. And
if
we'll
it-
just have to figure out.
Yeah, and I don't think there should be any fee for anything. And, you know, a lot of new restaurants and things will be opening on Museum Way, so perhaps as part of the subcommittee, you know, we can talk about just engaging with the Kimpton, engaging with House of Pokey. I know, you know, those owners have a really interesting community engagement, and so I
Right.
think, you know, I think we can, we'll see a lot of changes on that strip,
Right,
so.
and maybe food can be part of it.
Mhm.
But we've seen at least 2 other events where they closed that section of Museum Way. And so I think but we should perhaps pursue the permit to do that. Just with enough lead time. I don't know exactly what that is.
Who do we contact for that, Madam Chair, for the 14th, to close off Museum Way? Or did we work through staff?
Yeah, I think we should work through staff. Okay.
I would also add, we have the SEPT committee, and I don't know if you've already been in touch with them for special events. It's their function with City Hall to help coordinate closing streets and holding festivals.
A subcommittee of the council.
It's
No.
SEPT, I believe it stands for Special Events
Permit.
Planning Team. So,
September.
Very
Could you
good.
send like a contact?
You have the contact, it's Jasmine Waits.
Oh, it is Jasmine, yeah. I've been in contact with her. Okay.
So there's some excitement.
Okay, good. Yes, we're just tired, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Monday started at 4.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any other comments or requests, just in general? We will, if the subcommittees do decide to meet formally with all three of you or whatever, you might send a report to the staff and to me, just saying you met and this is what you were working on. But, you know, if it's just one of you pursuing how to get a permit or something, it just can, you know, need to be formal about it. No other comments or
Just
anything?
General comments or specific to this?
General.
General. Wanted to ask if we have an update on moving the Clemente sculptures.
Comments, yes. Actually,
If that's perhaps something we could celebrate in October.
yeah, that's great. Have you
2019.
be specific? I have not heard anything, so.
Can I have a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to move them, and could we put other art in those slots instead?
Well, we don't have to. I think we've sort of voted a couple of times that we would like to move them so that they're together. And I think definitely we could propose art for those, especially the one in front of the Palm Canyon Theater, which is also in front of the Desert Arts Center. They've asked from time to time about putting something there. The one that's in front of the Tiki Place or whatever that is, it's so crammed in with a bike rack and things, I don't know that it would be a good idea to put another piece there. And the one in front of the Regal Theater, we would have to talk to them if they
Or
would like
use
something.
the 3 spots that they were gonna be moved to for something else?
Well, I haven't given up on seeing the 3 of them in a row, because I believe that the artist actually likes the idea. I mean, when people have talked to him,
Yeah,
so.
and that's been something the commission's been working towards for a long time to get that. So to now suddenly go, oh, now we're not going to put them in that site would.
But we should think about what to put on the you know,
Where we move them from.
right,
Yeah.
could do that.
Just because if they're on the median, people won't be able to interact with them anymore.
That's true, but I think visually they'll just be, yeah.
Spectacular as you come from the airport to talk with Boulevard.
Just because you're in your car doesn't mean you can't
I
engage
know.
in public art.
No, I know. No, I know. It's just that we've been seeing all these photos of people sitting on them and interacting with them, and it's
Just have to
cool.
get some more
Yeah.
sittable art. There was that wonderful one that was in the shape of a dialogue box from a cartoon or something. The
Oh,
artist
yeah.
that we were hoping to, that Desert X was interested in using. And it's a seat so that you can sit in it. Okay, does the staff have anything they would like to report on?
No reports, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
I just say something?
Yeah.
I just have a question about maintenance. Is it that time of year again, or season? Have we done any maintenance lately, or?
Do you wanna think?
Of our existing art.
Yes.
Yes. That's a staff question.
Yeah.
Yes, maintenance has been getting done. I know the art pieces at the museum have recently had some maintenance work done on them. The Clemente art pieces had earlier this year been painted. So that is an ongoing process that is getting done. If you have recommendations for others, we'd be happy to take a look at it.
Just
Okay,
thinking
good.
about the budget.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, then, if there are no other comments, I'd like a motion to adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting on Thursday, September 13th, 2018 at 4 p.m.
Chair?
Yes?
Did you not agree to meet on August 30th at the Desert Art Center for the study session?
Well, doesn't it make more sense to adjourn to the next regular meeting and then also schedule a study session? Because that one we have to see if the room's available, and so we're proposing to do that. But I think the record should show that the next regular meeting is on September 13th. So a motion to adjourn to the next regular meeting on
Thursday, September
13th at 4 p.m. in City Hall, large conference room. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
It's interesting. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.